Hey y'all, welcome to Echoes and Voices of Texas. I am Buck Buchanan, your host and ranch boss and CEO of Circle 7 Ranch. I want to start out this show by telling you that we here at Circle 7 Ranch seek to bring history alive. A lot of what we do is to try to find the voices, the people, the characters that built America and the different states. So we've got several different programs going here at the ranch. One of them being Echoes of Appalachia, where the legacy keeper Logan Sejo works tirelessly to bring forth the Appalachian culture and the Appalachian way of life. He looks to bring out the history and the different people and tell their stories, so once again they have a voice. Another program we have is Echoes of Honor, our Civil War program that teaches about the American Civil War and the men and women who fought and struggled and died in that war and shaped the United States in the way it did. Brent Taft runs that, our heritage writer. He works very hard and is coming up with content and different ways to engage all of y'all in and help bring history come to life in a certain way. So we believe very strongly in telling the stories. So give me a drink of coffee here. One of the things that we're excited about is the launch of Echoes of the West. Echoes of the West is a program that's going to be dedicated to bringing the history of the Old West, the events, the timelines, letting the story speak again, letting the voices from the past become alive again. So with that, we're starting the very first Echoes and Voices of Texas. This series is going to be a series about the men and women who shaped and the events that shaped Texas to become the Republic and then later the state. So let's dive right in. We cannot talk about, when we're looking at history, let me start with this. I am going to do my best to present to you the history that I have the access to, that I am able to research, the things that I am able to research, and bring forward me and my team. So we will try to bring out some, in this episode, we're going to try to bring out some different points and highlight the different characters that started in the Revolution. Now, you cannot talk about Texas and the Revolution without talking about Stephen Austin. Now, for those of you who aren't very familiar with Texas, but know some of the state, you may know the name Austin as our capital. Texas capital is named after Samuel F. Austin. So, who was Samuel F. Austin? Samuel F. Austin was Samuel Fuller Austin was born in Virginia in 1793. He's known as the father of Texas for everything that he brought forward, including the organization that we now know as the Texas Rangers. So Stephen Austin was he was born in Virginia, then grew up in Missouri, Arkansas area. After his father received permission to bring settlers from Spain, permission from Spain to bring settlers into Texas, but he died before he could fulfill his plans. So Stephen Austin took up the mission of his father. He decided to go forward and still keep his father's dream alive about bringing more people to Texas. In the early years, he was a staunch supporter of the Texas government, very pro-Texas, very pro-Mexican law. He often told people that the Texans that lived, the settlers that lived in what was then Texas, or part of Mexico. He would tell people that these are very honest, hardworking, and law-abiding citizens. He was known for being a champion of trying to create peace between the two cultures. Because on one hand, you've got the Mexican culture, which is a derivative of the Spanish culture. The Spain is the one who originally conquered the area. So you have Mexico standing on its own now, and Mexico has a whole different culture than what the Americans are. Now the American settlers are coming from Tennessee, they're coming from Georgia, they're coming from all over, and they're settling because they can get large amounts of land in Texas. Now, what they're doing is they would come in, pledge an oath of loyalty and to the Mexican government, and then they would leave. Then they would get large tracts of land in order to ranch or homestead or do multiple different things. So by coming there and doing your oath of loyalty and having some money, you were allowed to take a lot of land. And when we're looking at the land of Texas, at this time it was largely unpopulated. So you have Mexico, which has more, at that time had a denser population, but then you had Texas, which was a ways away from Mexico. It was starting to change into its own culture. The native Texans were called Tejanos, and they were also more and more pushing for a separate state. Separate Mexican state that they could govern themselves. So Austin believed that this was something that we should keep peace between the two. And he was one of those key figures in early on kind of keeping the peace between the two. Tensions started to grow. And a quote from Austin was, "The Americans who settle here are industrious, honest, and peaceable. They come in obedience to Mexican laws and have no desire to live in quiet possession of their homes. No desire but to live in quiet possession of their homes." So he was trying really hard. I've got my notes over here that I'm going off of, but he was trying really hard to be this bridge, this peacemaker between the Mexican government and the Tejano people and the Texas settlers. So what happens? Well, there comes another key figure that we cannot talk about the revolution, Texas Revolution, without discussing. This figure is, and forgive me, I'm going to try to say this without messing it up, but his name, a leader arose, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, who rose to power he was born in 1794. He was a career military man and a politician. This was a guy who was very charismatic. Santa Anna was known for being very passionate, being able to stir people into action and persuade a lot of people. He was also what was called a centrist. So a centrist believed there was, Mexico at that time was very politically unstable. And at that point, there was two kind of figures going on. There's the Federalists that wanted estates. They wanted separate states within Mexico, with more laws to match the different states. But then there was called centralists. And centralists wanted there to be an absolute sole power that the Mexican government and Mexico would follow. So what happened was Santa Anna ended up coming into power. And when he came into power, he then, one of his things that he did was abolish the Constitution in 1824. So in 1824, he decides there is no state legislators, there is no any representatives. That is now all mine. He declared himself Emperor of Mexico, dictator. So in his mind, there needed to be stronger laws because Texas was a unruly and needed to be subdued. Texas was a rebellious province that needed to be brought under control, even if that meant by the sword. So the quote from Santa Anna was actually, if the provinces do not obey the laws of the nation, they must be taught obedience, even by the sword. So he was a very hard man when it came to people who would not see his political way. So he rises to power. All of this tension's going on. All it's boiling, like a good old gumbo. You throw many things in there, changes the flavors. All things are starting to boil. Well, that's what's going on in Texas. Things are hitting a boiling point. It's kind of growing and growing, and the Texas settlers are more and more. They're uneasy with this because now Santa Anna takes and starts to put stricter laws in place in Texas, in the province of Texas. So when he does this, what that does is stir more populist unrest. Well, so what happens? Well, Stephen Austin in 1833 decides he needs to go to Mexico City. He needs to plead for the rights of the Texicans and the Tejanos. He needed to plead for the people of Texas. He personally took, and as much, he was what was called an impresario. I believe I'm saying that right. Impresario would be the one that would actually deal out the land. He would be the one that would actually give out the grants. So Austin had become a very powerful man. And now all he wants is the freedom of people there. He just wants a greater freedom for them under the Mexican government. So in 1833, he goes to Mexico City. And what happens to him there? Well, when you usually tell a dictator that he ain't doing something right, what do you think he's going to do? Santa Anna got mad at him. When he got mad at him, he throws Stephen Austin in prison. He doesn't just throw him into prison, he's in prison for almost a year. I believe it was a full year. But finally, when he is removed from prison, all this did with Austin is take him from where he was trying to negotiate peace between the Mexican government and between the people of Texas, to now he's further convinced, he's even more convinced that there needs to be complete and total independence from Mexico. That Texas has to become its own country to throw off the ruling power. So Austin, who was once very, very, very conciliatory towards the Mexican government, trying to be peaceful, trying to really embrace the Mexican law, now he's separatist. Now he's can be called a revolutionary. Where he once hoped for reform and recognition, now he sees rebellion as the only way forward. Austin represented the Texans who hoped for peace and reform and recognition within Mexico's framework. But they started, because of Santa Anna seeing rebellion and lawlessness, he saw that there was a threat to the unity of the nation. So you see the two men, one saying for the peace and freedom of the people, we have to take a stand. They're not listening to us. They're changing who they think about us. They think we're scum. So they're not going to take us seriously. It's just going to get worse from here, and we need to separate now. Train militias. We need to separate. Then you have Santa Anna, who believes that Texas is their rightful province, and that they need to follow under his rule and his unity, and bring unity to the country, and quit being an adversary and stirring up trouble in the country. So he believes Texas is the issue, whereas Austin believes Texas is the answer. So the stage is set. Those two start to build the framework for going forward. Instead of, at that point, after Austin is released from prison, this is now, these two people are dynamically opposed. So you have the Napoleon of the West, is what Santa Anna called himself, and the father of Texas, both now at odds with each other. Austin started forming militias. He started holding conventions with other political leaders at the time, such as Jim Bowie and Sam Houston, which we will get to in a later date. Juan Seguin was also part of that, which also we will be coming up. I believe on episode 2 we will be going into Juan Seguin. And we will probably be going into a little bit more about Sam Houston. But as these two starts going, Santa Anna starts tightening his control, Texans refusing to disarm, and start to organize their towns and their villages to meet what's coming next. Santa Anna and Austin would, though Austin's health would never recover after the imprisonment, he would leave forever a mark on Texas. Both Santa Anna, though he may unknowingly have done so, his actions and Austin's actions at these points led to the birth of the Republic of Texas. I hope you enjoyed that. Next week, we will be going over a little bit more into the lives of Juan Seguin and a little bit into Sam Houston, though we may break Sam Houston down into 2 episodes, have no clue. These are fascinating characters. We will go through each step with it. I'm excited about this new journey. Glad to have you guys along the trail with us. So with that, enjoy life and all the Creator has for you, and all the happenings along the way. See y'all down the trail.